Now, let's talk AFCON, shall we? Speaking on Sky Sports this weekend, Jamie Carragher appeared to say that AFCON was not a major tournament and wasn't in the same bracket as either the World Cup, Copa America or the Euros. Former Man United defender Rio Ferdinand responded to Carragher's comments on his YouTube channel, saying that comment is representative of what the majority of people out there think. I don't think that's right. I think it's an ignorant thought process. Carragher addressed the situation on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and said the point I was trying to make was that Mohamed Salah is a disadvantaged player for Egypt in terms of him winning the Ballon d'Or. If Salah had an average season at Liverpool but won the AFCON and was MVP, I don't think he would win the Ballon d'Or. I don't think AFCON carries the weight of other tournaments, but if Mbappe had an average season at Real Madrid and won the World Cup or the Euros, he would still have a great opportunity. Right, first of all, what did you make of Jamie Carragher's comments regarding AFCON? And also, it's not just his comments, it's the sort of the way he responded to Micah Richards picking him up on it.
Yeah, I think it was the smirk that kind of did it afterwards, is to kind of turn your nose up at it. Listen, I've said it me and you've had this discussion before, and ever since we've been doing this show, I've come on here and I said how disrespected the AFCON is, and I stand by that. Even not just from people's perspective, but even from a media perspective, broadcast perspective. Like when we do major tournaments, and I get it, the AFCON is not the World Cup, right? The World Cup is the World Cup. It's the biggest thing in terms of football on the planet. That's right, but. For people that obviously live in Africa, that from African descent as well, like it's a huge tournament. Like it means so much to them, right? And the fact, for me, Mo Salah should probably win the Ballon d'Or. He's been brilliant this year, right? Him playing for Egypt or where he's from, I think it's always kind of irrelevant. If he wins the African Cup of Nations, fantastic, right? But to kind of say that it's almost irrelevant what he does with Egypt, I think it's a little bit poor taste. I think this country's been blessed with some unbelievable African players, right? The likes of the Toure brothers, Kanu, Drogba, Salah, Mahrez, Okocha, Mane, Essien, even George Weah, Ballon d'Or winner over here. I think this is the problem we've had, and this is not just like Jamie Carragher problem, but this has been a problem for many years. Like even the last African Cup of Nations, I remember sitting there saying to you, I love watching the African Cup of Nations. I think it's a fantastic tournament. It unearthed gems. But some people almost turn into superstars overnight because of that tournament. The coverage that it gets, when you put the game on, sometimes there's not even no like, analysis. It's just, you turn on the Sky Sports, bang, the game's kicked off. I remember the last AFCON, I think it was the last one, I turned the channel over, they've started to broadcast the game 20 minutes into the game. That would never ever happen in any other competition. World Cup, that would not happen. The fact that they chose to do that to AFCON, I think is really poor, and that allows other people to kind of have that same mentality towards the African Cup of Nations. Because if it's a major tournament, there should be post and pre-match about certain players, because there's going to be players that we never heard of. We want to hear a bit more about. You want to hear the routes to the finals and how teams have qualified, all that type of stuff you'd get in a usual major competition. But when broadcasters not even giving it the respect it deserves, it doesn't surprise me that other people are almost like, well, how can we take it seriously if they're not taking it seriously? How can you broadcast the game, Andy, 20 minutes after kickoff?
Yeah, there's no excuse for that.
There's no excuse for that.
No. I think I agree with you. I think there is a big problem, maybe not just in this country, but in Europe with the AFCON. Yeah. I think we also feel as though, because when the games are, it's not in the summer, I also feel that it gets in the way of our season. We all almost sort of resent the fact that this tournament comes along when it's a big moment of our season and players that are important to our team have to go. Yeah. So we resent it a little bit. Okay. I also feel as though there are sides that, because we concentrate so much on European football, and a lot of the majority of the players, I would imagine, I don't have numbers in front of me, that play in the Premier League are more European than African. Yeah. That we focus more on European tournaments. Yeah. And so when you have things like the Asia Cup, I don't really know the Saudi side. When you have AFCON, I don't really know a lot of the Nigerian players, Senegal, Ivory Coast. You know, there aren't a lot of players that I'm familiar with that there are when Spain play, or even when you look at the World Cup, when Brazil play, or Argentina. And sorry to interrupt you here, but that's the point as well, is that when it's a European competition, right, you know the players, and yet they're still getting the coverage. Even though you know every single one of these players, you're still getting the coverage. Because in some respects, you don't really know. You need the coverage for all sport, but certainly for that tournament, you're at the Euros, you know pretty much most of the top players, but they still get a lot of the coverage. Yeah. And as you just said there,
the AFCON, there's going to be loads of players you don't know, and they get no coverage.
Yeah. What I will add to that as well is that I think because the games are in our season, so we resent it. I think because the games are either quite early in the morning or quite late at night, we don't necessarily watch it as we would if they were in the summer and 4 p.m. kickoffs. I think that will make a difference. But what I will say, and this is not necessarily standing up for Jamie Carragher, but it's me saying I understand what he's talking about. I would say the majority of English football fans view AFCON the way Jamie Carragher obviously views it, and thinks that if Mohamed Salah were to win AFCON, it wouldn't be as important as if an English player won the Euros or a Spaniard won the Euros. So I can understand why he would think like that, but it's wrong to think like that.
Yes, but again, I don't just blame Jamie Carragher for that. That is the media coverage and the respect that the AFCON has got over the years. And as I've said there, you look at what Mo Salah's done for Liverpool. He's been incredible. Yes, they've had to lose him a couple of times, but it's had no effect really on what they've done. I remember Didier Drogba going to the African Cup of Nations, coming back and still winning the Golden Boot. Still coming back. He was fantastic. And Africa has given us such wonderful footballers, like some of the best probably in Premier League history.
But I would say that it's there's a better level of players in European football, i.e. the Euros, than AFCON.
But we didn't know that. Do you know why you wouldn't know that? Because we don't see enough of it. There's no coverage of it.
We don't. But you are right. But
do you know what I mean? That's the problem. And if it got the same level of coverage as, say, the Euros, the World Cup, I'm taking out of it because it's the World Cup, the Euros, the same level of kind of coverage, you'd know a bit more about the players, and you'd go, okay, because again, Asamoah Gyan, I played with him, Ghana, legend. These players, if there was a little bit of coverage on it, you'd go, okay, I didn't know about him, but boy, he looks good.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Do you know what I mean? But the fact there is no coverage,
but because as a nation, maybe when I say a nation, I mean Europe as a continent. Maybe because we're a little bit ignorant about the fact that we don't necessarily know those African players as well as we do the European. We don't view it at the same level, and we should do.
Yeah.
We should do. That's a big problem.
I think it's been undervalued and disrespected.
It has massively. It has massively, and that highlighted it at the weekend. We'll take calls on that. I think it's fascinating to have that conversation. You've heard what Bent is had to say. You've heard what I've got to say. And Rio and Carragher. Now it's your turn. 03717 223344. Dial that number. You could be next. Live and Drive and talkSPORT. Let's take your calls now on all things AFCON. Before the break, Bent and I will have our say on basically what Rio and Jamie Carragher were saying. Let's speak to Jesse, an Arsenal fan, and get his view. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Darren. How you guys doing?
How are you? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. First time caller. Nice to speak with you both.
Cool.
Big fan of the show.
Thanks, man. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've kind of been hearing this topic going on all day. And at first, I thought it's kind of people maybe choosing to be offended by something that I think, first and foremost, is just a bit clumsy. But after thinking about it, I kind of agree with pretty much how you guys were explaining it earlier on in terms of, it's a lack of effort from broadcasters to kind of put these guys in the limelight. And I think it's also a systemic issue in terms of just kind of painting AFCON in a poor light because, for example, there are the way people think about AFCON and African nations. For example, teams that have issues like getting to games, things like that. That kind of stuff happens in Copa America as well, but it doesn't get that kind of. It doesn't get put in the same light as it does when it happens with an African nation, for example. And I think all these little things do damage to the image of African football. And as Benty said earlier
can I ask Jesse, sorry, do you think it will make a difference if the games were in our summer and they were 4 and 7 p.m. kickoffs?
I think naturally, it would, because obviously nothing's really going on in the summer.
Yeah.
But I think regardless, I mean, when the World Cup was, or not the World Cup, because obviously that's the biggest thing going on, but when football's on at busy times, if you're interested, you're going to watch it, right?
Yeah, true.
When the Euros was on, and everybody's busy at work, they make time for the Euros. You see it on big screens in Woolwich. Yep. I'm from South East London. Yep. People, take time out of the office to watch it. I just don't think it gets that effort, and it does put African football in a bad light. So I think it's on the it's on the authorities to put it in a positive light, because there's so much going on. And as you guys were mentioning earlier, you don't know these football players until you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Thank you for your call.
If it was more kind of coverage around it, we'd get to know these players, but it gets no coverage.
Do you think I agree with everything you said. Do you think it makes a difference, or it would make a difference? It's every 2 years AFCON, right? Yeah. Every 4, would that make it? Does it dilute the brand? I'm just asking.
Not potentially, because it's been that way since the start. So I don't think so.
Okay. Dean's up next, an Arsenal fan. Hi, Dean.
Hi, you're right.
I'm good, man. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad at all. First time caller, and listen to you guys all the time, so it's good to finally get on.
Oh, how nice to speak to you as well. Thanks for that. Off you go. What would you like to say?
Well, I think it's funny. I was listening to Simon earlier on this morning, and he made 2 excuses for the way AFCON is looked at. First of all, he talked about the fact, and I think you just mentioned it now, about the fact that it's every 2 years. But you know what? All these competitions, I've heard Simon make the excuse in regards to the Premier League in terms to the competitions they play and the players playing various competitions. But again, it's all about money, isn't it? So at the end of the day, it's the same issues, whether it's the FA, whether it's the African equivalent. It's all about money they're trying to make. But I don't think that gives people the right to actually disrespect both the African game and actual AFCON itself. Like sort of what Darren said, they have contributed so much in terms of African footballers to the world of football. And then the other point Simon made as well was how many people will know who won the last AFCON. I could say the same thing, Andy. If I asked the average person who won the French league last year, I bet you no one will be able to give me the answer.
I mean, the French league's probably one. The example I probably wouldn't have. I would say PSG, but I get where you're coming from. Like the AFCON, mate, I watch it, so I know who won the last one.
I mean, it's probably always PSG.
But
I hear where you're going with it.
But he is right.
That's probably the easiest one to answer, right? Apart from when Mopo was in charge, and it wasn't that year. Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Listen, I think we covered it perfectly, you know. I think it does get a huge lack of respect over here. There's no reason for that. You know, there's equally brilliant players on both sides of the continent.
Maybe kick-off times are a reason as to it, but then the next World Cup is in, America?
Yeah.
So,
but I really do feel as though, because we feel, or some football fans of the Premier League think that it gets in the way of our Premier League, and they resent the fact that, like Liverpool fans might resent the fact that Mohamed Salah's got to go. So it gets in the way of that competition.
Well, I think certain managers, I know we've got to go to a break, certain managers haven't helped it either, because they've made reference and comments that,
right.
Oh, I wish he didn't have to go, I wish he wouldn't go. Right. I wish he'd make the decision to not go and stay with us. And it's like, who the hell are you to make that decision?
100% right. Imagine if you were playing in Africa and you had a manager said, hope he doesn't go to England playing the Euros. You're like, what?
There'd be uproar.
Yeah.
So I don't think managers have helped themselves either.
talkSPORT Drive with Andy Goldstein. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.